out of that whole 2020 election, the fake elector scheme is the thing that really bothers me.
Nice.
The fake elector scheme was a literal coup attempt.
Yeah.
Today is that these integrity issues, these integrity questions are going to pile up and up and up. And that press conference.
Yeah, they're piling up, man. Not sure if she's black or not. Apparently he had two different dogs that on a tweet, they think he called the same name. We got all sorts of huge issues. Breaking, McDonald's corporate sources have come forth and said they have no record of Kamala Harris working at any of their locations. Who would even verify this, number one? I have a hard time believing a corporation would do this unless a more reputable source is reporting this. And then two, I'm trying to think, if you work for a franchise, is corporate signing your paycheck? Who is your paycheck from? I think I worked at a corporate location. I don't remember who was from my paycheck. If you work at a franchise, who signs your paycheck? Fast food. I feel like it's probably the owner of the store or whoever's franchising. That would be my bet. Wait, hold on. Oh, dumb. Yeah, that'd be my guess. I worked at a Subway franchise and the owner paid us through their corp. Okay, yeah. 0% chance that corporate has documentation that is searchable for random employees at random franchises that might not exist anymore from 30 to 40 years ago. Yeah, I have no idea. Is McDonald's a franchise business? They offer franchising. I don't know if the majority of stores are franchise or corporate, but I think most fast food restaurants are corporate with franchising opportunities, I think. Percentage of McDonald's that are franchise versus corporate. Oh, 95% is franchised in the US. So most of the McDonald's locations are operated by franchisees. And then a few of them are company owned. Explain what the difference is right now. If I have a business called McDonald's, that business implies certain things. We serve a certain type of food. We have a certain type of restaurant setup. We, a certain type of products, procedures. That's all part of like the McDonald's brand name. And I might open restaurants that adhere and comport to the McDonald's brand name. Now, let's say that I want to expand my business. There are two different types of ways we could do that. Well, there's lots of. So there's two different ways we could go about this. One is I could open more stores, so they'd be more corporately owned stores. The second way would be, okay, well, I think that my model works really well. I've got like a good supplier for all of my stuff. What if I allow people to open McDonald's restaurants for me and they pay money to me, like a licensing fee, and then they can do, I've got the suppliers that they have to order from. I've got the procedures that they have to follow to adhere to the brand or whatever rules I have, but they can run it themselves as independent owners and operators. So that's a franchise. So somebody's basically paying money to you, saying like, hey, I want to open my own McDonald's. I'll order all the right shit. I'll put all the branding and logos and everything, but I want to run it privately, like on my own. That's like a franchise.
So to me, the two biggest criticisms of Trump is the fake elector scheme. Out of that whole 2020 election, the fake elector scheme is the thing that really bothers me.
Nice.
And then the second thing across a larger time scale is the counterproductive division that he's created in, let's say, our public discourse.
Nice.
What are your top 5 criticisms of Trump?
Okay.
Top 5.
So, number one, I have the same exact thing as you. The fake elector scheme is unacceptable, totally disqualifying. So the fake elector scheme was a literal coup attempt.
Yeah.
So he doesn't win the election. For folks who don't know, I need to explain why it's a coup attempt, because you just throw out words and then people get triggered by the words and then they go into their separate corners, right? So the January 6th rioters, they were not going to keep the building. That was not a coup attempt. It's not like, oh, the MAGA guys have the building, I guess they win, right? No, that was never going to happen. So what was the point of the January 6th riot? It was to delay the proceedings. Why did it matter that they were going to delay the proceedings? Because if you can't certify the election, they wanted general confusion and chaos so that the Republicans in Congress could say, well, we don't know who won, so we're going to have to kick it back to the states.
Yes.
In the states, they had the fake electors ready. And remember, the fake electors are not Trump's electors. there's both candidates have a slate of electors, Biden's electors and Trump's electors. They go to the Trump electors first in this plan, and half the Trump.
This is not technically correct how he's explaining it, but it doesn't matter. We got the idea right. We got the idea. Okay, that's all that matters.
Electors go, no, I'm not going to pretend Trump won the election when he didn't win the election. So they're like, shit, now we got to come up with fake electors. Okay. So they enlist these Republicans who go, yeah, I'll pretend Trump won. Right. And so they sign a piece of paper that's fraud. And that's why a lot of them are now being prosecuted in the different states. And so the idea is the Republican legislators then go, we're sending these new electors in. And we think Trump won Arizona and Georgia and Wisconsin. Right. That was the idea. That was the plan. And then you come back to the House. At that point, when there are two different sets of electors, the constitutional rule is the House decides. But the House decides not on a majority, because the Democrats had the majority at the time. They decide on a majority of the states. They vote by state. And the Republicans had the majority of the states. So in that way, you steal the election. Even though Trump didn't win, you install him back in as president. That is a frontal assault on democracy. And I loathe it. And then Trump on top just blabbers out, well, sometimes if there's massive fraud in an election, in other words, I think I won. I don't even think that. I'm just saying that I won, right? He says you can terminate any rule, regulation, or article even in the Constitution. No, brother, you cannot terminate the Constitution because you'd like to do a fake elector scheme and do a coup against America. You.
But is he really going to do it?
I'm never going to allow this wannabe tyrant to go back into the White House and endanger our system. And so you want to endanger the corrupt system? I'm the guy. Okay, let's go get that corrupt system and tear it down. If you want to endanger the real system, democracy, capitalism, the Constitution, then I'm your biggest enemy. So I'm never going to take that risk. And you see it every time he goes to talk to a dictator. Look, guys, I'm asking you to be principled, right? I asked the left of that, and we drive away some of our audience when we do that. So we got the balls to do that to our own side. So for the right wing, be honest. If it was Joe Biden or Barack Obama or Kamala Harris that went and wrote, quote, unquote, love letters to a communist dictator who runs concentration camps, you would say, communist, we knew it. Look at that. And Trump literally says about Kim Jong-un, we wrote love letters to one another. We fell in love. If a Democrat said that, they'd be politically decapitated, right? Their career would be instantly over, right? But Trump, whenever it's Xi Jinping, Vladimir Putin, don't get into Russia, but it's just that he's a strong man, right? Kim Jong-un, or any Viktor Orban, Duterte in the Philippines. Anytime it's a strong man that says, screw our Constitution, screw our rules, I want total loyalty to one person, Trump loves him. He loves him. And he said once, he's like, oh, it's great. You go to North Korea or China, and when the leader walks in, everybody applauds. And everybody listens to what he says. That's how it should be here. No, brother, that's not how it should be here. You hate democracy. You want to be the sole guy in charge. As a populist, you should loathe Donald Trump.
I agree on the fake elector scheme. Can you, Steelman, and maybe educate me on there's a book, Rigged, that I started reading.
Alpha, Cenk Uygur dominates. Beta, Lex Fridman. He didn't really argue back at all. I feel like this thread title is autistically provocative, but okay. Damn, why did it get banned? Who banned this dude?
Okay, well, then let's talk about Donald.
Oh, I can just look, can't I? Hold on. Oh, no, wait, this is an unban. Okay, I'm banning him. 7 days for being too provocative.
Is there any degree to which the election was rigged, or elections in general are rigged? So I think the book Rigged, the main case they make is not that there's some shady fake ballots. It's more the impact of mainstream media and the impact of big tech.
So rigged is another one of those words that triggers people and is ill-defined, right? So let's begin to define it. So the worst case of rigged is we actually changed the votes, right? So a lot of Trump people think that that's what happened. Nonsense. That didn't happen at all. Okay. So then you move. And by the way, some on the left thought the votes were changed in the 2016 primary and it was literally rigged against Bernie. No, that did not happen. Okay. That is a massive crime and is very risky and is relatively easy to get caught. People who are in power are not interested in getting caught. They're not interested in going to jail, etc. It is a very extreme thing. Could it happen? Yes, it could happen. Have I seen any evidence of it happening in my lifetime? Not really.
Given how much people hate this, you probably just need to find evidence of one time. Like one vote being changed where you can trace them saying something in some room somewhere, that would just explode. That evidence just doesn't seem to be there.
And by the way, for the right wing who say verify the vote, goddamn right, verify the vote, right? So you want to have different proposals like paper ballots, recounts, hand recounts, which by the way, you had not the paper ballots, but the 3 recounts and a hand recount in Georgia and so many of these swing states. He lost. There was no significant voter fraud. Now, second thing in terms of rigging is voter fraud. So how, and the right wing believes, oh my God, it's voter fraud.
Okay.
Madam Vice President, Governor Walz, thank you so much for sitting down with me and bringing the bus. The bus tour is well underway here in Georgia. You have less time to make your case to voters than any candidate in modern American history. The voters are really eager to hear what your plans are. If you are elected, what would you do on day one in the White House?
Well, there are a number
Be a dictator.
of things. I will tell you, first and foremost, one of my highest priorities is to do what we can to support and strengthen the middle class. When I look at the aspirations, the goals, the ambitions of the American people, I think that people are ready for a new way forward in a way that generations of Americans have been fueled by hope and by optimism. I think, sadly, in the last decade, we have had in the former president someone who has really been pushing an agenda and an environment that is about diminishing the character and the strength of who we are as Americans, really dividing our nation. And
I didn't hear an answer.
I think people are ready to turn the page on that.
So what would you do day one?
Day one, it's going to be about, one, implementing my plan for what I call an opportunity economy. I've already laid out a number of proposals in that regard, which include what we're going to do to bring down the cost of everyday goods, what we're going to do to invest in America's small businesses, what we're going to do to invest in families, for example, extending the child tax credit to $6,000 for families for the first year of their child's life, to
$6,000, Jesus.
help them buy a car seat, to help them buy baby clothes, a crib. There's the work that we're going to do that is about investing in the American family around affordable housing, a big issue in our country right now. So there are a number of things on day one.
What about you?
Well, I'm excited about this agenda, too. As I said, the idea of inspiring America to what can be. And I think many of these things that the Vice President's proposing are things that we share in values. And the child tax credit is one we know that reduces childhood poverty by a third. We did it in Minnesota to have a federal partner in this. Unbelievable, I think, in the impact that we can make.
You talked about, you call it the opportunity.
Day one was 3.5 years ago. What has she been doing? Well, so she's the vice president, and the vice president doesn't really do anything. They can't really do anything. Generation video gamer, no problem. We can help you with your civics questions. Just ask away.
Economy. You are well aware that right now many Americans are struggling. There's a crisis of affordability. One of your campaign themes is we're not going back. But I wonder what you say to voters who do want to go back when it comes to the economy specifically, because their groceries were less expensive, housing was more affordable when Donald Trump was president.
Well, let's start with the fact that when Joe Biden and I came in office, during the height of a pandemic, we saw over 10 million jobs were lost. People, I mean, literally, we were all tracking the numbers. Hundreds of people a day were dying because of COVID. The economy had crashed. In large part, all of that because of mismanagement by Donald Trump of that crisis. When we came in, our highest priority was to do what we could to rescue America. And today, we know that we have inflation at under 3%. A lot of our policies have led to the reality that America recovered faster than any wealthy nation around the world. But you are right. Prices, in particular for groceries, are still too high. The American people know it, I know it, which is why my agenda includes what we need to do to bring down the price of groceries. For example, dealing with an issue like price gouging, what we need to do to extend the child tax credit to help young families be able to take care of their children in their most formative years, what we need to do to bring down the cost of housing. My proposal includes what would be a tax credit of $25,000 for first-time home buyers, so they can just have
God damn! What the fuck?
enough to put a down payment on a home, which is part of the American dream and their aspiration, but do it in a way that allows them to actually get on the path to achieving that goal and that dream.
So you have been vice president for 3.5
Basic econ question. What are the best ways the federal government can spend into its population but is currently unable to because of lack of political feasibility? Well, it depends on what you mean when you say best way to spend. Like, do you mean, like, for instance, if you say the best way that they can spend, like, in a way that's fiscally cost effective, then it's usually investments in the IRS, right? Things to increase tax compliance so you can bring money back into the federal government. If you mean best things as in like economic stimulus, what are your highest? You'd probably look for like highest spending fiscal multipliers or something. I don't know. I don't know what those numbers are, or I don't know what the best things are. I know that, like, for instance, like investment in birth control related stuff usually makes you more money. You end up saving money fiscally. That's not really benefiting the economy, though. Yeah, I don't know. The government really shouldn't be in the business of, I don't think, like boosting the economy much. You just want to regulate so that people aren't fucking each other over too much. And then if you need to do stimulus during periods of recession or whatever, then you do that. But otherwise, you kind of just hopefully get out of the way and then do welfare, basically.
Half years. The steps that you're talking about now, why haven't you done them already?
Well, first of all, we had to recover as an economy, and we have done that. I'm very proud of the work that we have done that has brought inflation down to less than 3%. The work that we have done to cap the cost of insulin at $35 a month for seniors. Donald Trump said he was going to do a number of things, including allowing Medicare to negotiate drug prices. Never happened. We did it. So now, as I travel in the state of Georgia and around our country, the number of seniors that have benefited, I was in Nevada recently, a grandmother who showed me her receipts. And before we capped the cost of insulin for seniors at $35 a month, she was paying hundreds of dollars up to thousands of dollars a month for her insulin. She's not doing that anymore.
You maintain Bidenomics is a success.
I maintain that when we do the work of bringing down prescription medication for the American people, including capping the cost of the annual cost of prescription medication for seniors at $2,000, when we do what we did in the first year of being in office to extend the child tax credit so that we cut child poverty in America by over 50%, when we do what we have done to invest in the American people and bringing manufacturing back to the United States so that we created over 800,000 new manufacturing jobs, bringing business back to America, what we have done to improve the supply chain so we're not...
If they're going to substantially expand on the child tax credit, where do you think they should make spending cuts to balance things out? I don't know. I don't know where the majority of the money is spent, or where the majority of the money that they've spent we would consider like wasted expenditures. I don't know the federal budget well enough, and nobody really talks about it meaningfully, so it hasn't even like entered my brain where the cuts would be made there.
Relying on foreign governments to supply American families with their basic needs, I'll say that that's good work. There's more to do, but that's good work.
I want to get some clarity on where you stand on some key policy issues. Energy is a big one. When you were in Congress, you supported the Green New Deal. And in 2019, you said, quote, "There is no question I'm in favor of banning fracking." Fracking, as you know, is a pretty big issue, particularly in your must-win state of Pennsylvania.
Sure.
Do you still want to ban fracking?
No, and I made that clear on the debate stage in 2020.
Nice.
That I would
That's
not ban
good.
fracking. As vice president, I did not ban fracking. As president, I will not ban fracking.
In 2019, I believe, in a town hall, you said you were asked, would you commit to implementing a federal ban on fracking on your first day in office? And you said, there's no question I'm in favor of banning fracking. So yes, you were asked,
I will not ban fracking.
In 2019, I believe, in a town hall, you said you were asked, would you...
That was 2019. Didn't she say in 2020 she went back on that? Wait.
On the debate stage in 2020.
Oh, in
That I
2020. Okay.
would not ban fracking. As vice president, I did not ban fracking. As president, I will not ban fracking.
In 2019, I believe, in a town hall, you said you were asked, would you commit to implementing a federal ban on fracking on your first day in office? And you said, there's no question I'm in favor of banning fracking. So yes. So it changed in that campaign?
In 2020, I made very clear where I stand. We are in 2024, and I've not changed that position, nor will I going forward. I kept my word, and I will keep my word.
What made you change that position at the time?
Well, let's be clear. My values...
What made her change is that Democrats aren't full fucking retards. And you can have your wondrous Democrat econ policy, but at some point you're going to have to talk to like an actual implementation person or policymaker. They're like, hey, listen, if you do this, you're going to take our entire fucking country off a cliff. And so you're like, okay, well, maybe we shouldn't do that then, is the answer. We'll see how she answers it.
have not changed. I believe...
What made you change that position at the time?
Well, let's be clear. My values have not changed. I believe it is very important that we take seriously what we must do to guard against what is a clear crisis in terms of the climate. And to do that, we can do what we have accomplished thus far. The Inflation Reduction Act, what we have done to invest, by my calculation, over probably $1 trillion over the next 10 years, investing in a clean energy economy. What we've already done, creating over 300,000 new clean energy jobs. That tells me, from my experience as vice president, we can do it without banning 100,000 new clean energy jobs. That tells me, from my experience as vice president, we can do it without banning fracking. In fact, Dana, I cast the tie-breaking vote that actually increased leases for fracking as vice president. So I'm very clear about where I stand.
And was there
That's a decent answer. Okay.
some policy or scientific data that you saw that you said, oh, okay, I get it now?
What I have seen is that we can grow and we can increase a thriving clean energy economy without banning fracking.
Okay. Governor Walz.
Man, they're really trying to milk us here. Nope. Where's part two?
Another issue, big one, is immigration. As vice president, you were tasked with addressing the root causes of migration in southern countries and
Northern part of Central America.
the northern part
Yeah.
of Central America that deals with, that affects the southern border of the U.S. During that Biden-Harris administration, there were record numbers of illegal border crossings. Why did the Biden-Harris administration wait 3.5 years to implement sweeping asylum restrictions?
Well, first of all, the root causes work that I did as vice president, that I was asked to do by the president, has actually resulted in a number of benefits, including historic investments by American businesses in that region. The number of immigrants coming from that region has actually reduced since we began that work. But I will say this, that Joe Biden and I, and our administration, worked with members of the United States Congress on an immigration issue that is very significant to the American people and to our security, which is the border. And through bipartisan work, including some of the most conservative members of the United States Congress, a bill was crafted, which we supported, which I support. And Donald Trump got word of this bill that would have contributed to securing our border. And because he believes that it would not have helped him politically, he told his folks in Congress, don't put it forward. He killed the bill. A border security bill that would have put 1,500 more agents on the border. And let me tell you something, the Border Patrol endorsed the bill. And I'm sure in large part because they knew they were working around the clock, and 1,500 more agents would help them. That bill would have allowed us to increase seizures of fentanyl. Ask any community in America that has been devastated by fentanyl what passing that bill would have done to address their concern and pain that they've experienced.
So you would push that legislation again? I just want
Not
to
only
ask
push it, I will make sure that it comes to my desk and I would sign it.
just one other question.
Do you like Kamala? I guess. Like, between voting for Trump and her, like it's a no-brainer. I'm voting for her. She would have to do quite a bit to lose my vote. But I think she probably sits to the left of me, maybe fairly significantly on a lot of economic stuff. So, but I mean, like, there's not any alternative right now. So,
Question about something that you said in 2019 when you first ran. There was a debate. You raised your hand when asked whether or not the border should be decriminalized. Do you still believe that?
I believe there should be consequence. We have laws that have to be followed and enforced that address and deal with people who cross our border illegally, and there should be consequence. And let's be clear, in this race, I'm the only person who has prosecuted transnational criminal organizations who traffic in guns, drugs, and human beings. I'm the only person in this race who actually served a border state as Attorney General to enforce our laws, and I would enforce our laws as president going forward. I recognize the problem.
Generally speaking, how should voters look at some of the changes that you've made, that you've explained some of here in your policy? Is it because you have more experience now and you've learned more about the information? Is it because you were running for president in a Democratic primary? And should they feel comfortable and confident?
how do you feel about a 25% tax on unrealized gains? Even with its cutoffs, couldn't it significantly damage the stock market? Taxing unrealized gains is stupid. But that's never going to be implemented. That's such a bad idea. I'm not even worried about it because there's no way that will ever be implemented. It's impossible.
Border state as Attorney General to enforce our laws, and I would enforce our laws as president going forward. I recognize the problem.
Generally speaking, how should voters look at some of the changes that you've made, that you've explained some of here in your policy? Is it because you have more experience now and you've learned more about the information? Is it because you were running for president in a Democratic primary? And should they feel comfortable and confident that what you're saying?
I don't know. I'm trying to think for the average American voter. It seems like people are allergic to saying like, oh yeah, like I did more research into this issue and I was wrong, or I did more research into this issue and now I have a different idea. It seems like you can never say that. I don't know why. I'm realizing now as I have more clarity on how different the Republican media establishment is versus the Democrat media establishment. Doing any of these interviews is incredibly difficult because you're trying to do them to turn out your base and make them happy. But every single thing that you say is going to be harped on and sniped by conservatives, like in the most bad faith manner possible. So you're trying to answer questions that appeal to your base and answer in a way that, you know, eases concern about substantive issues, knowing that every single thing you say is going to be torn to shreds by the worst faith Republicans. Like, I am so sorry, but you are instantaneously the most retarded fucking I see so many dipshit, like genetically inferior, okay, absolute Neanderthal, 85 IQ white guys, okay, that do tweets like this. I don't even understand what Kamala's saying. Have you ever looked at a single paragraph of Trump's speech in your entire life? And you're going to pretend that you understand that? These are the most degenerate. And I see so many people, that one crazy psycho dude, the Todd Grand guy, who's now, I guess, like a political partisan hacker or whatever, was doing this with Kamala, where he's just like plainly reading in his monotonous, like psychopathic voice, like all of her sentences, like, wow, these don't make sense. Have you looked at anything that Donald Trump has ever said? Have you ever put pen to paper and tried to understand anything he said ever? Like it's So it's very frustrating, I imagine, to be operating in this media environment where you've got, 85 IQ Neanderthals here that should have been like eugenicized out of the gene pool, like 20,000 years ago, but they were probably kept around as some kind of like entertainer for the fucking tribesmen who were laughing at retarded children, and somehow they accidentally passed their genes on, and now you have people like this. It's got to be incredibly frustrating to operate in this environment.
Now is going to be your policy moving forward.
Dana, I think the most important and most significant aspect of my policy perspective and decisions is my values have not changed. You mentioned the Green New Deal. I have always believed, and I've worked on it, that the climate crisis is real, that it is an urgent matter to which we should apply metrics that include holding ourselves to deadlines around time. We did that with the Inflation Reduction Act. We have set goals for the United States of America and by extension the globe around when we should meet certain standards for reduction of greenhouse gas emissions, as an example. That value has not changed. My value around what we need to do to secure our border, that value has not changed. I spent 2 terms as the Attorney General of California prosecuting transnational criminal organizations, violations of American laws regarding the illegal passage of guns, drugs, and human beings across our border. My values have not changed. So that is the reality of it. In 4 years of being vice president, I'll tell you one of the aspects to your point is traveling the country extensively. I mean, I'm here in Georgia. I think somebody told me 17 times since I've been vice president in Georgia alone. I believe it is important to build consensus. And it is important to find a common place of understanding of.
These people are running to represent people on objectively important issues. You constantly give them the excuse that they may have updated their opinions. What about fracking technology has changed in the last 4 years to explain this? Well, the explanation that she gave was that initially, maybe it seems like you've got to get rid of fracking because that's the only way to combat climate change. But then she said, well, but we've also made huge investments in green energy, and maybe we can still have fracking while reducing our reliance on fracking, not by banning fracking, but by investing in alternative energy. That was the answer she gave. I imagine there's probably some element of truth that she would never say publicly, which I would understand, which is that in a primary, you have to differentiate yourself from the other candidates, and fracking might have been one way to do that. But like the answer she gave was an acceptable defense of it. It's more acceptable than conservatives that either don't believe climate change is real or think that climate change is real, but we don't ever have to worry about it, or think that the earth is only 6,000 years old and protect priests that fuck their children. So, I mean, like, whatever answer she's giving here is already like miles ahead of, whatever like sludge comes out of a conservative mouth when they try to talk about anything related to climate change.
Of where we can actually solve problems.
On that note, you had a lot of Republican speakers at the convention. Will you appoint a Republican to your cabinet?
Yes, I would.
Anyone in mind?
I would. No one in particular in mind. We got 68 days to go with this election, so I'm not putting the cart before the horse. But I would. I think it's really important. I have spent my career inviting diversity of opinion. I think it's important to have people at the table when some of the most important decisions are being made that have different views, different experiences. And I think.
What's your take on fracking? I mean, there's different ways to frack. There are different risks in the area, but like depending on where you're fracking and how you're doing it. But I mean, like fracking is a huge source of energy in the United States and in the world. There's no way we're ever getting rid of or going back on fracking. That's just never happening. That will never ever happen. Like, why don't they talk about stopping S block loans? What did the S block, small business line of credit loans? Is that what that means? Instead of fucking 25% unrealized gains, that's the actual problem. I don't even know if they've done. I don't know what this unrealized gains proposal even is. Isn't it only over $100 million in gains? They're never doing this. You wouldn't even raise any fucking revenue doing this. Like, it's just stupid.
It would be to the benefit of the American public to have a member of my cabinet who was a Republican.
I want to ask you about your opponent, Donald Trump. I was a little bit surprised. People might be surprised to hear that you have never interacted with him, met him face to face. That's going to change soon. But what I want to ask you about is what he said last month. He suggested that you happened to turn black recently for political purposes, questioning a core part of your identity.
Yeah. Same old tired playbook. Next question, please.
S block is securities-based line of credit. The one I went over that one dude. Ben Affleck, his name isn't Affleck or whatever, but that one guy had a base suggestion on Twitter, which is basically just, if you're going to ever, I'm so sorry, I love you, but I don't want to do the finance every single time. But basically, you can only take out a loan against assets that you have stepped the basis up enough in to secure with that loan. I think that's a really good idea. Bill Ackman, yes. So if you've got $50 million worth of investment and your tax basis for that is $5 million, and you want to take out a $20 million loan against the value of that, you have to pay taxes to step the basis up to $20 million. So you'd pay $15 million worth of capital gains taxes to step up the basis. I think that's an ingenious idea. I love that idea. but it's too financially brained. No one would even propose this as policy because nobody even knows what the fuck any of that means. So.
That's it? That's it. Okay. Let's talk about some foreign policy issues that would be on your plate if you become commander-in-chief. President Biden has tried unsuccessfully to end the war between Israel and Hamas in Gaza. He's been doing it for months and months, along with you. Would you do anything differently? For example, would you withhold some U.S. weapons shipments to Israel? That's what a lot of people on the progressive left want you to do.
Let me be very clear. I'm unequivocal and unwavering in my commitment to Israel's defense and its ability to defend itself. And that's not going to change. But let's take a step back. October 7.
Go back, you missed her hardest line. Wait, did I? Fuck, hold on.
To turn black recently for political purposes, questioning a core part of your identity.
Yeah.
Any
Same old tired playbook. Next question, please.
That's it?
That's it.
Okay. Let's talk about some foreign policy issues
that was
that would be
hard.
on your
Thank
plate
you.
if you become commander-in-chief. President Biden has tried unsuccessfully to end the war between Israel and Hamas in Gaza. He's been doing it for months and months, along with you. Would you do anything differently? For example, would you withhold some U.S. weapons shipments to Israel? That's what a lot of people on the progressive left want you to do.
Let me be very clear. I'm unequivocal and unwavering in my commitment to Israel's defense and its ability to defend itself. And that's not going to change. But let's take a step back. October 7. 1,200 people were massacred. Many young people who were simply attending a music festival. Women were horribly raped. As I said then, I say today, Israel has a right to defend itself. We would. And how it does so matters. Far too many innocent...
Do you think she's going to have an easy time in the debate? She's pretty good at zingers. It just depends on how well she zings.
Palestinians have been killed. And we have got to get a...
I hate CNN softballing and letting her change the topic and literally ask for the next question. I mean, this lady's done an okay job at holding her accountable, but Trump has never done a real interview in his entire fucking life. Trump never answers questions with any kind of substance whatsoever. So, I mean, like, when you ask Trump, how are you going to end the war in Ukraine? And he says, I'm going to make one phone call and it's going to end. Like, fuck off. Like, yeah, wow, he sure is being held to account there. Bro, Trump doesn't know where Ukraine is on a fucking map. Guaranteed 1 trillion%. Like, come on.
Deal done. We were in Doha. We have to get a deal done. This war must end.
In the meantime-
And we must get a deal that is about getting the hostages out. I've met with the families of the American hostages. Let's get the hostages out. Let's get the ceasefire done.
But no change of policy in terms of arms and so forth.
No, we have to get a deal done. Dana, we have to get a deal done. When you look at the significance of this to the families, to the people who are living in that region.
From a pure performance point of view, do you think she looked down at the table? No, I don't know. Not. What debate strategy would you recommend to her if you were her coach? You need to find the most hard-hitting personal attacks you can do, and you always got to find a way to ground out whatever policy bullshit you ramble through has to end by shitting on Trump. You got to make him feel bad. Amen.
A deal is not only the right thing to do to end this war, but will unlock so much of what must happen next. I remain committed, since I've been on October 8, to what we must do to work toward a two-state solution, where Israel is secure, and in equal measure, the Palestinians have security and self-determination and dignity.
Okay, boring. Final part.
The country is just starting to get to know you. I want to ask you a question about how you've described your service in the National Guard. You said that you carried weapons in war, but you have never deployed actually in a war zone. A campaign official said that you misspoke. Did you?
Well, first of all, I'm incredibly proud. I've done 24 years of wearing the uniform of this country. Equally proud of my service in a public school classroom, whether it's Congress or the governor. My record speaks for itself, but I think people are coming to get to know me. I speak like they do. I speak candidly. I wear my emotions on my sleeves, and I speak especially passionately about our children being shot in schools and around guns. So I think people know me. They know who I am. They know where my heart is. And again, my record has been out there for over 40 years to speak for itself.
And the idea that you said that you were in war. Yeah. Did you misspeak as the campaign has said?
Yeah, I said we were talking about, in this case, this was after a school shooting, the ideas of carrying these weapons of war. And my wife, the English teacher, told me my grammar's not always correct. But again, if it's not this, it's an attack on my children for showing love for me, or it's an attack on my dog. I'm not going to do that. And the one thing I'll never do is I'll never demean another member's service in any way. I never have, and I never will.
I just one other question, because again, this is all new. Yeah. This was not, however many days ago, this was not on either of your bingo cards, especially yours. You had to clarify that you had said that you and your wife used IVF, but it turned out you used a different kind of...
This is so fucking cringe. Remember, you're running against a guy that was paying hundreds of thousands of dollars to porn stars that he was fucking, okay, in campaign funds that you lied about, all right, that you now had felony convictions about, that you're fucking behind your wife's back, by the way, right? And now we're asking questions about, did you actually use IUV, or did you use VFD, or did you use Gundam XGP, or were you using DBZ? Like what the fuck? Like, it's so cringe.
That you had said that you and your wife...
Like, are these all right-wing talking points? Like, do Democrats care about... Are Democrats wondering, like, was he wrong about the type of fake semen injection his wife took? Like,
either of your bingo cards, especially yours, you had to clarify that you had said that you and your wife used IVF, but it turned out you used a different kind of fertility in order to have children. And then when you ran for Congress in 2006, your campaign repeatedly made false statements about a 1995 arrest for drunk and reckless driving. What do you say to voters who aren't sure whether in 95 will have children? And then when you ran for Congress in 2006, your campaign repeatedly made false statements about a 1995 arrest for drunk and reckless driving. Your campaign repeatedly made a different kind of fertility in order to have children. And then when you ran for Congress in 2006, your campaign repeatedly made false statements about a 1995 arrest for...
Okay. False statements, 1995 arrest, Walz campaign 2006. Wait, what is this about? Tim Walz's 2006 campaign falsely described details about his arrest for drunk driving in 1995. Why is this being posted in 2024? We hate ourselves. What the fuck? Okay. I think that's the main problem. If you're able to use your unrealized gains as collateral for loans, then you should be taxed on them. Yeah, that's why I just said you would pay to step up the basis if you're using them for loans. According to court and police records connected to the incident, Walz admitted in court that he'd been drinking when he's pulled over for driving 96 miles per hour in a 55 zone in Nebraska. Walz was then transported by a state trooper to a local hospital for a blood test, showing that he had a blood alcohol content level, or blood alcohol level of 0.128, well above the state's legal limit of 0.1 at the time. But in 2006, his campaign repeatedly told the press that he had not been drinking that night, claiming that his failed field sobriety test was due to a misunderstanding related to hearing loss from his time in the National Guard. The campaign also claimed that Walz was allowed to drive himself to jail that night. None of that was true. A CNN K-file review of the statements made by the Walz campaign at the time reveals numerous discrepancies between how the campaign described the events and the facts of what actually took place that night. The DUI charges were dropped for a reason. It wasn't true. Walz's then campaign communications director told local news in 2006. The trooper had him drive to the station and then leave on his own after being at the station. Tim feels bad about speeding and has paid the ticket and apologized to his family at the time it happened. Okay. If he did lie about this, he should know. It's pretty retarded. But keep in mind that you're running against a, just convicted felon. So I don't know why we're answering for things happening in 96. But lying is dumb. Don't do it. At least not if you're going to get caught. Let's see. 2006, an old charge against him first said 11 years in Dawes County jail. Where? Oh, watch the video. Okay. Jesus Christ. Oh, this is a web archive. Oh, the site's not up anymore. Do we have any of these statements on video? Walz. Campaign, lying, DUI. Oh, thank God we've got Fox News here.
Vice President Kamala Harris's running mate, Tim Walz, is facing new controversy around his 1995 DUI arrest, specifically how his 2006 congressional campaign explained the incident. Now, according to police records obtained by CNN, a Nebraska state trooper booked Walz speeding at 96 in a 55-mile-per-hour zone. Now, according to that police report, a strong alcoholic odor was detected from Walz's breath and person, and he failed the field sobriety test. Then he failed the preliminary breath test, and he failed the subsequent blood alcohol test when he was taken to a hospital before being booked for that DUI. But now fast forward to 2006, when Walz was running for Congress.
Are all Nebraskans like that? Listen, okay? We like to drink, we like to drive. What do you want to say?
His campaign.
You think there was an Uber back in 96? You know how long you have to wait calling a yellow cab? Sometimes you got to drive drunk real fast. What people don't realize is if you're driving drunk at 45 miles per hour for an hour, that's an hour that you're on the road as a threat to somebody. But if instead of going 40 or 50 miles an hour, if you drive 80 or 90, now you're only on the road for 30 minutes, okay? You're reducing the threat to the population by 50%, okay? You're taking the time you are on the road and you're cutting it in half, all right? So it's essential to drive as quickly as possible while drunk in order to get to your destination ASAP.
Told a very different story. His communications director told a local paper that Walz's arrest was because of hearing loss he suffered in the artillery unit of the National Guard. Quote, he couldn't understand what the trooper was telling him during the field sobriety test, and the trooper refused to speak up. Sean, what do you make of that?
So first, he admitted to being drunk in the plea hearing with the court. We have court reporters that record everything that's being said in court. So we go back to the record, and he admitted that he was drunk driving. By the way, so the legal limit back then was 0.1, and he was 0.128. But today, in most states, I think in all states, the legal limit is 0.08. So he was over 50% above the legal limit for driving. So again, I think it goes back to just Tim Walz is a liar. Whether it was a stolen valor for his military service or here what happened with the drunk driving. Be honest with people. Go, you know what, I made a mistake. But here's the problem. Democrats are now...
Was Trump honest about literally anything?
Saying, listen, this was so long ago, this is irrelevant. But they're going back into J.D. Vance's history, pulling up old pictures of J.D. when he was in high school. With Kavanaugh, they went back to high school and college. It's relevant, your history, when you were a young man or young woman, when you're a Republican. But if it's Tim Walz and you're a Democrat, let's disregard it because it was, 25 years ago. Ridiculous.
And
Basic.
Tommy, the critics are arguing, dishonesty is always relevant. And the issue was not drug use or DUI. The Americans elected, George Bush, who had a DUI, President Obama, who admitted to using cocaine. There's more there. But the point is that...
Obama admitted to drugs, to cocaine? Well, if it was crack... No shit, he fucking used it. He was a black man growing up in Chicago. The fucking CIA probably gave it to him. Did he grow up in Chicago? I don't actually know.
Honesty. Do you think that this will shine through to Americans?
I'm also wondering if the Harris campaign didn't properly vet Tim Walz, because there seems to be a few of these unforced errors here that maybe wouldn't have been there with somebody else that they could have chosen. So I'm just wondering if they knew...
God, this woman is so stupid. Holy shit. If Tommy Lauren was just 5 IQ dumber, if she was just a tad more fucking stupid, okay? She could be a co-host on the Majority Report. She's almost there.
All this, and they just didn't care. They didn't think the American people would care. But it's not the act, it's the cover-up. And what really struck me there about his campaign talking about this back in the early 2000s is that they blamed the officer for not speaking up. The worst thing that you can do is blame the officer who's out there just doing their job. So for me, that's the most embarrassing part for Tim Walz, is that you're blaming a hearing loss, which may have been the case. You might have hearing loss, but then it's the officer wouldn't speak up, but then you admitted that you were drunk. Just take accountability.
Oh, he grew up in Hawaii? I thought it was Jamaica. Or Kenya. Fuck.
It's a teachable moment. He was a teacher, a coach. Take accountability for it, but don't try to cover it up, and don't blame other people. Don't blame the officer 29 years ago. To me, that's the most disgusting part of it.
Yeah. And meanwhile, being clocked at 96, that's almost twice the speed limit, which is felony speeding in most jurisdictions. So they're glossing over that. Talk to us about the media, Kaylee. How have they portrayed this?
The media cover up to this is fascinating. So in 2006, the far left Daily Kos had...
Wait, can you get... Is speeding ever a felony for traffic infractions? Wait, hold on. I think in Iowa, reckless driving is only a misdemeanor. We're in the clear.
This to say, in 1995, Tim Walz was pulled over for speeding and arrested for DUI. The only problem for the Republican lie machine is he wasn't drunk. Tim has significant hearing loss. He couldn't hear the officer who pulled him over. The judge...
Pulled over for speeding and arrested for DUI. The only problem for the Republican lie machine is he wasn't drunk. Tim has significant hearing loss. He couldn't hear the officer who pulled him over. The big E.
Throughout the case. Okay, now CNN, I love when left-wing outlets attack left-wing outlets or dispute one another, because CNN did a fact check, not of the Daily Kos, but just of the claim in general, a more recent one. Here's what they found. Tim Walz's 2006 campaign falsely described details about his arrest for drunk driving.
These should be public, right? These records should be public?
Go into details about what you said, the 0.128 level when the legal limit was 0.1. And they go so far as to say the field sobriety test was due to a misunderstanding to hearing loss from the National Guard. That's what his campaign said. They also claimed Walz was allowed to drive himself back. None of that was true. So it's bad when CNN has to call you out on this. I guess good for CNN for digging into it, but he lied, to your point. Stolen valor, and now this. What doesn't he lie about?
Yeah. And Molly, what do you expect from the Harris campaign? As Tommy pointed out, it raises questions whether he was vetted properly.
Yeah, I think this is one of the big challenges that they will face with not having a press conference for 26 plus days, unless they swing one up today, is that these integrity issues, these integrity questions are going to pile up and up and up. And that press conference...
Yeah, they're piling up, man. Not sure if she's black or not. Apparently he had 2 different dogs that on a tweet they think he called the same name. We got all sorts of huge issues. I don't know if the campaign can weather the storm.
Conference, if they're really taking a lot of open questions, could get pretty brutal. And the press is going to want to dig into these issues and say, why did your campaign manager say in 2006 that you weren't drunk? Were you not drunk? Are you blaming what happened on your military service? Speaking of your military service,
yeah.
And then they're going to go into that issue. And this is just, it's going to get worse and worse. And you can ride these numbers, they're in a bit of a surge, and you can look to the next thing that's going to surge. You want your DNC surge. But at some point, you're going to have to stand up and answer questions. And I'm just really wondering what that's going to look like as this pile-on continues.
Yeah, we just got to hope those questions are indeed asked.
Hey, Sean Hannity here. Hey, click here to subscribe to Fox News YouTube page and catch our hottest interviews and most compelling.
According to court and police records. My God, we didn't have good scanners back then. I know you said that alternative media is a unique cancer to discourse for the lack of trust it instills in mainstream media, but isn't it also the mainstream media just openly shits on themselves excessively? This Fox clip is just one example, but they seem to be advertising themselves as alternative media. Fox News is a special case. Fox News is uniquely evil and terrible and horrible as a media enterprise, but I think it's because they're kind of audience captured by conservatives that have become like uniquely horrible consumers of media in the United States as well. Reading through that Dominion case proved that that was unbelievable to me. That was unreal. Yeah, Jesus. 12th. I still can't believe 12th has an F in it. 12th. The 11th, the 12th. No, it does. F. 12th. 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 13th. Huh. Is there going to be an amendment to the complaint then by plea agreement? Yes, Your Honor. Pursuant to plea agreement, a state would reduce the charge to a reckless driving from a DUI. Yes, Your Honor. Mr. Nolan, is that Walz's attorney? Mr. Harford is his counsel. Mr. Nolan is the Dawes County attorney. Okay. Pursuant to a plea agreement, the state would reduce the charge to a reckless driving from a DUI. And Mr. Harford, there will be a plea then to the indiscernible judge. That's correct. I think the complaint may reflect that. It may not. I'm not sure if there was a speeding count. There is a speeding and it's my understanding that the speeding and the DWI would be amended to reckless driving, and there will be a plea to that judge. Will there be an amended complaint filed? Yes, Your Honor. Mr. Walz will proceed on today. You'll not have a written copy of this complaint, but it will charge you with what is commonly called reckless driving. Reckless driving carries a maximum 3 months in the county jail, a $500 fine. That is the maximum possible penalty. There is no minimum penalty required by the law. There is no court-ordered suspension. There is no court-ordered suspension on reckless driving, but there could be a loss of license if you have points problems. Do you understand that? Yes, Your Honor. Mr. Walz, also it's true on reckless driving, somewhat similar to DWI second offense, that at a later time it would be more serious than a first offense. It's also an offense that can be enhanced. Do you understand that? Yes, Your Honor. Somewhat similar to... Okay. And finally, Mr. Walz, the complaint would allege that you drove a vehicle in a manner as to indicate an indifferent or wanton disregard for the safety of persons or property. Do you understand that? For reckless driving, I believe that you can be... once you're past a certain speed limit, it is automatically considered like reckless driving. Reckless driving isn't like a separate thing you have to prove or whatever. It's just once you're going past a certain speed limit or past a certain speed, I think it might be 15 miles per hour over in Nebraska. It might be 25. I don't know if they call it reckless driving or willful reckless driving as opposed to like negligent reckless driving. I don't know if there's two different things, but like, yeah, you're auto fucked on that. Finally, Mr. Walz's complaint would allege that you drove a vehicle in a manner so as to indicate it. Okay, yes. How do you want to plead in that charge of reckless driving? I plead guilty. And again, do you understand what this charge is now and what the penalties could be? Yes, Your Honor. Have you received any promises or threats or pressure to get you to plead guilty? No, Your Honor. The county attorney has agreed to dismiss those other two charges and charge you only with reckless driving. Has anything else been agreed to by the county attorney that you know of? No, Your Honor, not that I know of. Do you understand that by pleading guilty, you now give up your right to a jury trial? Yes, Your Honor. When you're pleading, by the way, if you take a plead, the plea has to be genuine, by the way. I didn't know that until we were watching something like a few months ago. And if you say some shit like, yeah, like, I guess I'll plead to this, or like, I guess, whatever, like, this is what I'm pleading to, I guess. Or like, if you say some shit like that, the judge can reject your plea, and then you go to the other, back to the original charges or whatever. You have to, like, you're genuinely pleading guilty to whatever it is you're being asked to plead down to. You have to, you can't just, like, do some retarded shit. Do you understand by plug? Yes, Your Honor. And then your right to see, hear, and have a lawyer question the witnesses against you. Yes, Your Honor. And you give your right to testify and present a defense. Yes, Your Honor. Wait, what is this? Oh, don't care. So it's just a standard pleading guilty. The judge can reject a plea bargain at any point for any reason, right? They might be able to, but I mean, ultimately, I think like the DA is the one who decides who's going to plead to what, right? The court finds then the plea of guilty knowingly, voluntarily, intelligently made by, can you provide a factual basis then? I don't remember the exact date, Your Honor, and I don't have that file. Mr. Walz was driving south of the town of 385 in Dawes County at a high rate of speed. Actually, he was driving away from the police officer. I think that he eventually hit a speed of over 80, as I recall. When he was stopped, he was given a blood test, which did show a 0.128 blood alcohol. Those would be the bases for the reckless driving. Your Honor, I'm sorry, the exact date I don't have. It appears on the complaint. Would be on September 23rd, 1995. Yes, September. Oh, okay, Judge. I think I could probably add just a little bit to that. Mr. Harford. Okay, this is the Walz's defense attorney. I apologize both to the court and to Mr. Nolan I thought this was scheduled for a pre-trial conference today, so I had Mr. Walz come. I appreciate the court allowing us to do this today. It was, in fact, the date that was alleged in the complaint. He initially, I think, was clocked by one of the State Patrol fences at about 70. The State Patrol officer turned around and, this is a little bit bizarre, but Mr. Walz thought somebody was chasing him. The officer didn't turn on his red lights, and somebody came up real fast behind him, and he didn't know what they were doing, so he sped up to try to get away, fearing that somebody was after him. Lo and behold, it was a state patrolman that was behind him. So the faster he went, the faster the state patrol officer went. Finally, he did turn on his red lights. The speed was fairly excessive, Judge, a lot over the speed limit. I don't even know what was alleged in the complaint. It may have been 90-something. Mr. Walz had been drinking, so I think there's a sufficient factual basis, Judge, to support the plea. I don't know what the point of bringing all this up is. He's already pled guilty. I don't know what. But also, keep in mind there's okay, remember, when it comes to actual, in-court litigation proceedings, okay, take everything I say with a grain of salt, okay, but there's, proper ways that court is supposed to happen, but when you get to smaller and smaller courts, shit can get kind of wacky sometimes. Not everybody might be 100% following every process or procedure, not every, just as a matter of just something to keep in mind, but the judge has to accept the plea deal, right? I don't know if a judge, hold on. Does a judge have to accept a plea deal? Judge must approve a plea deal. Once you've reached an agreement with the prosecution, the judge hears the details of the deal. The judge will ask you to confirm you're entering the plea deal voluntarily. Okay. So yes. That which makes sense. Keep in mind that it's hard to see this as a layman, okay? But you guys, we're super educated now, okay? Because we read one Supreme Court case, okay? When you look at court looks like two parties. It looks like the court, and then it looks like the person being prosecuted, the defendant. But remember, there's two different aspects involved in the court, which is the judge. Thank you. The judge represents the judicial system. Okay, the judge is there to judge, right, matters of law and to have a jury there to determine, matters of fact. The judge is there, but the district attorney, the prosecutors, that's like the president in our court system. Or I'm sorry, if you think of the three branches of power, the judge is kind of like the Supreme Court, but the prosecutor is the executive branch. It's a different thing. Even though they look like they're on the same team and they're all together, they're not. They represent two different and distinct branches of what's going on in a particular in the room. They're just two different things. Just always keep that in mind. A prosecutor and a judge represent two different parts of power of the state. The judge is only there to judge. The judge is never there to bring charges or that's not the judge's job. That's what the prosecutor is for. Judge, I think you probably add just a bit. Okay, so we have this meme. The court finds then the factual basis by the county attorney is sufficient. The court accepts the plea of guilty and finds him not guilty then of reckless driving. Any comments for the state on sentencing? I think given the circumstances, Your Honor, that the fine that the court has been imposing on the reduction or something from a DUI to a reckless would be appropriate. Mr. Harford, any comments? Judge, I do have a few comments, I guess. Mr. Walz, is asking the court to impose a fine. I think that this is the kind of case that a fine would not show any disrespect for the law. So before they do this plea deal, the prosecutor and the defense are going to talk to each other and say, like, listen, let's not go to court. This is a first time offense. These are like all like very human discretionary moments. Okay. So assuming Mr. Walz doesn't have a big criminal background or anything crazy like that, the defense attorney and the prosecutor will be talking. I have a good client. He's a chill dude. No priors. Okay. You don't want to fuck this guy's life up. We'd be hurting the city. We'd be hurting the population by putting people like this in jail. Let my guy plea it down. You don't have to waste time going to trial. We don't have to do all this stuff. He'll pay a fine. Obviously he recognizes he did do wrong. Like, look, you can see genuine contrition. He knows he did wrong. He'll pay the fine. Like, it'll be better for everybody if we do this. And then the same thing will be made before the judge, right? Because technically, I believe the prosecution can recommend sentencing to the judge, but I don't think a prosecution can guarantee it because remember, the judgment part, the judging, the sentencing is, I think at the end of the day, up to the judge himself. So a judge could get a recommendation from a prosecutor and say, well, fuck you, actually. I'm throwing you in the slammer now for the maximum sentence or whatever. But in front of the judge, you're going to be asked, the defense attorney and maybe even the defendant himself is going to be asked to be making the argument of like, well, hey, listen, this is why what my guy did, it wasn't as bad, but he understands he did wrong and he agrees to pay the fine and we think that this is okay. So that's why you're getting this. I think this is the kind of case that a fine would not show any disrespect for the law. You're not going up to a judge and being like, bro, we got the sickest plea deal. Like, can you please just accept this? Like, holy fuck, my client got out of so much, Your Honor. I'm so fucking psyched for this, Your schizo arc shows me how close the age of AI is. I admire your ability to get knowledge for the truth, even if it hurts. P.S. Politics is boring. Embrace anarchy. Thank you, Eric Zeta, for the $200. God damn. How does a prosecutor make deals with a lawyer then if they can't dictate how someone gets charged? Well, they can probably request sentencing from a judge or recommend sentencing, and they can go over the specific charges. You could plead down to something of a lesser charge. Or plea to a lesser offense, maybe I should say. I think that this kind of, okay. He did have a relatively low test, Judge, a 0.128. In addition, I believe this court has suppressed the test results as a result of the Smith case and the Margurk phonetic case and some of those cases. More importantly, though, I think the court should know Mr. Walz is a teacher at the Alliance High School, has been for quite a few years. He felt terrible about this, was real disappointed, I guess, in himself. He went and immediately reported this incident to his principal, showing contrition is like good in front of the judge, right? He resigned all of his extracurricular duties at the high school, which included some coaching responsibilities, I believe. He also offered to resign his teaching position because he felt so bad. He, I think, takes the position that he's a role model for the students there. He let them down. He let himself down. Because of that, he was ready to resign his position. Fortunately, the principal talked him out of resigning from school. He did, in fact, though, resign from his extracurricular activities. Mr. Walz now, I think, has taken the opportunity to turn this into a positive for him and his students. Now, he is, I guess, ministering, so to speak, to the students about all the bad things that can happen if you drink and drive and get caught for drinking and driving. I wanted the court to know that he did, Judge, lose his license administratively for 90 days. He's done that suspension and jumped through all the hoops to be reinstated. I think because of those things, Judge, and I think because I think there is some good to come from this in the fact that he now hopefully can reach out to younger people and hopefully tell them what he's went through, that a fine would probably be appropriate. The court, Mr. Walz, anything you want to say here before the court imposes a sentence then? The defendant, no, Your Honor. The court, Mr. Walz, on this case, there will be a fine of $200 plus court costs, which will include the test fee. Mr. Walz, I guess it may, I don't know if it may or may not surprise you, but we do have school teachers come in on this offense, and as I always have the same concern that your attorney has expressed, this is a real problem for me to see a teacher get picked up for this offense because you do have a role model. That's why you're a teacher. If you didn't think you could affect children's lives, why would you be a teacher? I want to share a couple things that I tell people on a DWI offense. The first thing I ask them is, why is it against the law to drive with a 0.128 blood alcohol content? Why is it against the law? Why is that against the law? Always asking. So, and the defendant, so Walz says, not just statutory, it's just a dangerous situation. Your Honor, not just to myself, but to others who aren't even involved with it. Okay, good answer. Absolutely. You are an impaired driver at that situation, and you run the risk of killing yourself and killing somebody else. What is the first effect that alcohol has on you when you drink alcohol? Walz says, I think it impairs your ability to make sound decisions and correct decisions. Right. The first effect is that it affects your judgment. You'll see people say dumb things, do something. Okay. This was the citation. Oh, God. PTSD. Can you explain why judges have discretion for determining retribution and sentencing, while a jury can only convict guilty/not guilty. What would be the philosophy behind it? Well, in different states, actually, I believe juries can recommend sentences or even do sentences, although maybe only in civil cases. But in some states, the juries themselves will actually decide. I just don't remember that's if it's civil and criminal or just one or the other, or I think it just depends. Going 96 and a 55 and DWI. Damn. And no registration. Damn, they don't even bring up that one. Jailed. If he really got pulled over for DWI as well, there's no fucking shot that they let him drive. I don't believe they will let him drive his car to the station either. So if the campaign said that, they probably lied about that too, but. This is the police report. From the high rate of speed, the vehicle was radar. Driver was identified. Strong alcohol beverage was detected. Mr. Walz was given a field sobriety test, which he failed. Mr. Walz then submitted to a preliminary breath test, which he failed. Transported to Chadron Hospital, where a blood test was taken. Mr. Walz was then transported to the Dawes County Jail and booked in at approximately... okay. Rip. There is a small chance maybe that he would have been allowed to drive if I guess the officer technically that's up to the officer discretion. But I mean, actually, no, it would just be the officer breaking the rules. But I mean, man, that would be a big liability. That'd be a big risk for the officer to take. Jesus. Did the officer do any type of sobriety test? Yeah, he did a breathalyzer and a field sobriety test, apparently. I mean, he failed both. I don't know this is so stupid to lie about stuff that's in court records. '95, Tim Walz was pulled over for speeding and arrested for DUI. The only problem for the Republicans' lie machine is he wasn't drunk. Tim has significant hearing loss. He couldn't hear the officer who pulled him over. The judge threw out the case. This is not true. He did not throw out the case. Unless he got pulled over a different time for being drunk. Okay. Nice. Side stop. Wonder what he says here to it then.
Used IVF, but it turned out you used a different kind of fertility in order to have children. And then when you ran for Congress in 2006, your campaign repeatedly made false statements about a 1995 arrest for drunk and reckless driving. What do you say to voters who aren't sure whether they can take you at your word?
Well, I've been very public. I think they can see my students come out, former folks I've served with, and they vouch for me. I certainly own my mistakes when I make them. The one thing I'll tell you is I wished in this country wouldn't have to do this. I spoke about our infertility issues because it's hell, and families know this. And I spoke about the treatments that were available to us that had those beautiful children there. That's quite a contrast in folks that are trying to take those rights away from us. And so I think people know who I am. They know that record. They've seen that. I've taught thousands of students. I've been out there. And I won't apologize for speaking passionately, whether it's guns in schools or protecting of reproductive rights. The contrast could not be clearer between what we're running against. The vice president's position on this has been clear. And I think most Americans get it if you've been through that. I don't think they're cutting hairs on IVF or IUI. I think they're cutting.
What happens when a judge throws out a case? Well, it depends on what we mean. I don't know when we say throws out a case. It depends on what what that means.
This has been clear.
What would
and
you say that?
I think most Americans get it if you've been through that. I don't think they're cutting hairs on IVF or IUI. I think what they're cutting hairs on is an abortion ban and the ability to be able to deny families the chance to have a beautiful child.
Vice President Harris, you were a very staunch defender of President Biden's capacity to serve.
Okay. That answer is okay. I guess they're not going to press him on the lying about the DUI thing or DWI.
Another 4 years right after the debate, you insisted that President Biden is extraordinarily strong. Given where we are now, do you have any regrets about what you told the American people?
No, not at all. Not at all. I have served with President Biden for almost 4 years now, and I'll tell you, it's one of the greatest honors of my career, truly. He cares so deeply about the American people. He is so smart and loyal to the American people. And I have spent hours upon hours with him, be it in the Oval Office or the Situation Room. He has the intelligence, the commitment, and the judgment and disposition that I think the American people rightly deserve in their president. By contrast, the former president has none of that. And so, I am so proud to have served.
I found this clip timestamped of you from a few months ago. I'm not sure if your position has changed on this or if you could expand on it a little bit.
And seeing that the U.S. Biden, he's actually kind of started to draw criticism from hardcore Zionists because he's starting to condemn settlements. We've seen, even I think he's starting to say that they're going to reject visas for settlers. Is that something you support?
No, I do not support the revoking of visas for settlers. I think that Biden should hold all Israeli aid, every single dollar we send them, contingent on absolutely halting the settlements right now until the problem gets fixed. I think Biden didn't go far enough with that. I think the settlements are ridiculous, and every single new house that goes up is an impediment to some sort of future two-state solution. So I think that there needs to be massive
You're in
repercussions.
favor of a two-state solution?
Wait, what are you asking? Or what do you... I don't understand what your question is.
As Vice President to Joe Biden. And two, I'm so proud to be running with Tim Walz for President of the United States and to bring America what I believe the American people deserve, which is a new way forward, and turn the page on the last decade of what I believe has been contrary to where the spirit of our country really lies.
But the last decade, of
He's asking if you still hold that position? No, he's implying that I just answered a question or something earlier in a way that I've changed my position on that. I don't think I have. I think the settlements are fucking terrible. I think it's probably the number one impediment to the Israeli-Palestinian problem being solved, and it's just getting worse and worse and worse every single year. I don't know what position I've changed. I think I've been fairly consistent on that. When was this? In February? Damn, it's early on. Yeah, I don't think my position on that has changed. Well, I mean, it got worse after I started doing research, but it was before this it got worse.
Of course, the last 3.5 years has been part of your administration.
I'm talking about an era that started about a decade ago, where there is some suggestion, warped I believe it to be, that the measure of the strength of a leader is based on who you beat down, instead of where I believe most Americans are, which is to believe that the true measure of the strength of a leader...
Wait, what?
I'm talking about an era that started about a decade ago, where there is some suggestion, warped I believe it to be, that the measure of the strength of a leader is based on who you beat down, instead of where I believe most Americans are, which is to believe that the true measure of the strength of a leader is based on who you lift up. That's what's at stake as much as any other detail that we could discuss in this election.
Because we haven't had a chance to talk, I'm just curious, staying on President Biden, when he called you and said he was pulling out of the race, what was that like? And did he offer to endorse you right away, or did you ask for it?
It was a Sunday, so here, I'll give you a little too much information.
Go for it. There's no such thing, Madam Vice President.
My family was staying with us, and including my baby nieces, and we had just had pancakes and, you know, Auntie, can I have more bacon? Yes, I'll make you more bacon. And then we were sitting down to do a puzzle. And the phone rang, and it was Joe Biden. And he told me what he had decided to do. And I asked him, are you sure? And he said yes. And that's how I learned about it.
And what about the endorsement? Did you ask for it?
He was very clear that he was going to support me.
So when he called to tell you, he said, I'm pulling out of the race and I'm going to support you.
Well, my first thought was not about me, to be honest with you. My first thought was about him, to be honest. I think history is going to show a number of things about Joe Biden's presidency. I think history is going to show that in so many ways it was transformative, be it on what we have accomplished around finally investing in America's infrastructure, investing in new economies, in new industries, what we have done to bring our allies back together and have confidence in who we are as America and grow that alliance, what we have done to stand true to our principles, including one of the most important international rules and norms, which is the importance of sovereignty and territorial integrity. And I think history is going to show not only has Joe Biden led an administration that has achieved those extraordinary successes, but the character of the man is one that he has been in his life and career, including as a president, quite selfless and puts the American people first.
I just have to ask you both about two standout moments, aside, of course, from the addresses that you both gave, but standout moments that were perhaps unexpected.
Wait, what is up with this weird coverage of Kamala from the left? What is, like, I saw that one crazy fact checker lady who's like says insane shit. Next question. Harris evades questions about her identity. What? What? Why? Why is that the phrasing? Because she said she doesn't want to talk about her suddenly deciding to become black? What is the...
Yeah, I think that's like the only realistic solution.
No one cares about you.
During the convention. You mentioned one of them, Governor. A moment that you shared, that the world shared with your son, Gus. You were speaking, the camera caught him, so incredibly proud of you, so emotional, saying, "That's my dad."
Yeah, I don't know as a father I could have ever imagined that. I'm grateful for so many reasons to be on this ticket, but that moment, to understand what was really important, to have my son feel a sense of pride in me, that I was trying to do the right thing. And it was, you try and protect your kids, it brings notoriety and things, but it was just such a visceral, emotional moment that I'm grateful I got to experience it, and I'm so proud of him. I'm proud of him. I'm proud of Hope. I'm proud of Gwen. She's a wonderful mother, and these are great kids. And I think the one thing is talking about the era we're in is our politics can be better. It can be different. We can show some of these things, and we can have families involved in this. And I hope that I hope people felt that out there, and I hope they hug their kids a little tighter, because you just never know, and life can be kind of hard.
And last question, Madam Vice President, the photograph that has gone viral. You were speaking, one of your grandnieces that you were just talking about was watching you accept the nomination. You didn't explicitly talk about gender or race in your speech, but it obviously means a lot to a lot of people, and that viral picture really says it. What does it mean to you?
I am running because I believe...
I think that's a smart decision. Hillary's campaign was very much focused around first woman president and like breaking the glass ceiling and all that. And it's possible that Kamala's talking about it and I've missed it. But I haven't heard, actually, I don't think I've ever heard her. Have I ever heard her mention like first woman president ever? I don't know if she has. I'm sure she has somewhere, and I just either don't remember it or I haven't heard it. But it's definitely not a focal point of the campaign. Oh yeah, I'm with her. Yeah, the Hillary thing. Yeah.
What does it mean to you?
I am running because I believe that I am the best person to do this job at this moment, for all Americans, regardless of race and gender. But I did see that photograph, and I was deeply touched by it. And you're right, it's the back of her head, her two little braids, and then I'm in the front of the photograph, obviously speaking. And it's very humbling. It's very humbling in many ways.
Did she talk to you about it afterwards?
Oh, she had a lot to talk about. She had a lot. She listened to everything, and she listens to everything.
Give you your hot takes?
Oh, yeah, definitely.
Madam Vice President, Governor Walz, thank you so much for your time. Appreciate it.
Why is it okay for Biden to drop out of the race because of his age, but it's still okay for him to remain in office for the rest of his term? He dropped out because he doesn't think he's going to win the next election. That's why he dropped out.
Thank you, Dana. Thank you.
I really do Twitter threads, but I have a lot of feelings on the unrealized gains proposal, and I think it's badly misunderstood, so here goes. The core problem with the capital gains tax right now is that the realization rule, you're only taxed when you sell, creates massive economic distortions. It effectively offers capital income, an interest-free loan. If I get $1 billion in unrealized gains at a 2010 IPO and owe $250 million in taxes, I can wait a decade and still only pay $250 million in taxes with no interest if I just don't sell in the interim. Okay. This creates lock-in, preventing investors from directing capital to new projects if they've already gotten big gains in an existing one. It's actively bad for startups. Fuck me, finance. Is this true? If I have an unrealized gain of $200 million and I'm not selling that to invest in something else, if I were to sell it to invest in something else, isn't somebody else buying what I'm selling and now they're not investing in something else? I don't know if that would be true or not. This feels like a broken window fallacy to me. I mean, it's less taxed income, but preventing investors from directing capital to new projects if they've already gotten big gains in existing ones is actively bad for startups. It also is part of why you've seen a move away from dividends and towards stock buybacks. which let investors enjoy this benefit from deferring realization. Economists and tax lawyers have been writing about this for decades. William Vickery has a paper on it from 1939. Everyone agrees this is a problem. This is not a sudden Biden-era thing. Averaging of income for income tax purposes. I don't have the time to read this whole thing. It's long considered one of the principal defects of the graduated individual income tax that fluctuating incomes are, on the whole, subjected to much heavier tax burdens than incomes of comparable average magnitude, which are relatively stable from year to year. That changes in the allocation of income, which have no relation either to physical realities or to the real financial status of the taxpayer, should substantially affect his income tax burden, is obviously not in accordance with the principle of taxation according to ability to pay. This is true. So what this is saying is, let's say somebody's earned $50,000 a year over 10 years. Ideally, they pay taxes on $50,000 a year over 10 years. But if one year they have like $20,000, the next year $80,000, the next year $40,000, the next year $60,000, the next year $20,000, the next year $80,000, right? That the person who's got this roller coaster of different gains is going to end up paying more in taxes than the guy who just has steady income. This is what this is talking about. So yeah, that's it. But if they're getting paid wackily different amounts of money, that's not in accordance with the that has no relation to physical realities or to the real financial status. Okay. Two notable attempts have been made to remedy the situation by the introduction of an averaging process. In the state of Wisconsin from 28 to 32, the state income tax was assessed on the basis of the average income for the last 3 years, with certain adjustments at the transition years. However, legal difficulties arose in the collection of the tax from individuals who left the jurisdiction of the state. And Commonwealth of Australia in 1921 enacted a provision that the rate of tax to be applied to the income of the current year was to be determined by reference to an average of the income for the last 5 years. Okay. This has this is about averaging for income tax, which is different than capital gains. But I mean, I guess I don't know how I feel about the citation of this paper when talking about capital gains. Maybe if I read more, maybe I would agree with it. But I guess it hits at a general principle of an individual doing realization when it's tax convenient for them rather than it being forced upon them. So it's kind of similar in concept, but okay. If you want to do an income tax rather than a consumption tax, you need to structure it as taxing what's called Haig-Simon's income, which treats unrealized gains as income. This is basic optimal tax stuff. Expanded income is a current year pre-tax and transfer economics success in nominal dollars. Economists generally agree that in theory, a Haig-Simon's measure of income is the best measure of economic well-being. Broadly speaking, Haig-Simon's income is defined as consumption plus changes in net worth. Increases in net worth are generally derived from savings and become a source of a family's consumption in a future year. Decreases in net worth are generally the result of the family drawing down their savings, while conceptually easy to define because of data limitations. A Haig-Simon's measure of income is extremely difficult to implement. For example, a Haig-Simon's measure includes changes in balances of a family savings account. Such data on a micro level is tenuous at best. Expanded income tries to capture the most practically measurable elements of Haig-Simon's. What year is this paper? 2012. Okay. Because of data limitations, the formulation of expanded income embodies significant departures from the Haig-Simon concept. For instance, it includes realized and not accrued income from capital gains and pension benefits, and it ignores the rental value of owner-occupied housing and other durable goods. The most economically significant departure from the Haig-Simon concept is the inclusion of nominal rather than real capital income. Both interest income and capital gains are overstated in the presence of inflation. For example, if a taxpayer has a $1,000 savings account that pays a 5% annual interest rate, the taxpayer has a $50 of nominal interest income. This nominal interest income is included in AGI and an expanded income. However, the annual inflation rate is 4%, then the annual real interest rate is only 1%, and the taxpayer's real interest income is only $10. The real interest income is equal to the $50 nominal interest income minus the $40 decline in real value of the savings account balance due to the 4% inflation. Similar mismeasure, and this would be a mismeasurement. Why? Both interest income and capital gains are overstated in the presence of inflation. Both interest income and capital gains. For example, if a taxpayer has a $1,000 saving rate that pays a $5, the taxpayer has a $50 nominal interest increase. Both interest income and capital gains are overstated. Oh, I understand. Because you're saying, oh, this person made, if we include the nominal increase, meaning not the inflation adjusted increase, they gained $100 last year, but the reality is inflation adjusted, that gain is going to be lower. So you're overstating capital income because you're not taking into account your inflation. Okay. I don't know what the point of it is. I mean, similar mismeasurement occurs with respect to capital gains because AGN expanded income measures the difference between the nominal sales price of the asset and its nominal purchase price with no adjustment for any inflation that occurs between the date of purchase and the date of sale. Okay. So that means if I buy something for $100 and I sell it for $10,000, it's probably not proper to say that I made $9,900 on it. The real analysis would probably be not the nominal value of the sale compared to the nominal value of the purchase and the nominal value of the when you sell it. It's probably what the inflation adjusted purchase price was less the current inflation adjusted, which would just be nominal. Sorry. Okay. What? Hold on, we're almost done. Similarly, depreciation allowances are based on original costs with no adjustments for inflation occurring from the time of purchase to the time the depreciation allowance is claimed. These purchase. Okay. Okay. Sorry. All right. We already use mark-to-market taxation, the technical term for taxing unrealized gains on some income. This is what the US v. Moore case was all about. This imposes a transition tax on undistributed profits accrued by U.S.-controlled foreign corporations between 1986 and the end of 2017. Ruling more that limits unrealized income could potentially nullify other long-standing portions of the core of the dispute is the interpretation of the 16th Amendment, which grants Congress power to link. Okay, all right. The alternative to mark-to-market that also fixes the deferral bias is to add a deferral charge. You tax assets when they're sold, but charge interest for each year they weren't sold. Interesting. For illiquid assets like real estate and art, you have to use a deferral charge because there's not a reliable way to value the assets before they're sold. The Biden proposal uses a deferral charge, not just for real estate and art, but for privately held companies. If the stock is not valued on a public exchange and more than 80% of your assets are like this and otherwise illiquid, you don't have to prepay. This is what drives me crazy about the Silicon Valley complaints about shares and non-public startups. They haven't read the plan and don't realize they're exempt. The problem with the deferral charges, and the reason why Biden didn't just go with them to cover absolutely everything, is political uncertainty. Let's say Harrison's a law adding 3% of everyone's capital gains bill for each year they don't sell. The best move is to sell nothing until 2029 or 2033, and there's a Republican president. And Congress and that charge is repealed. Policymakers in the process of trying to reduce lock-in wind up increasing dramatically. All right, I'll cover this.